There were calmer scenes at a gathering in central London on Sunday following criticism of the police tactics the evening before at a vigil for murdered woman Sarah Everard. More than 1,000 people gathered in a demonstration against the policing of Saturday's event. Metropolitan Police Commissioner Cressida Dick has been forced to defend her officers after they were seen physically restraining female demonstrators on Clapham Common in South London. Hundreds defied coronavirus restrictions on Saturday to protest violence against women and to remember Sarah Everard, a 33-year-old London resident whose disappearance and murder has prompted a national outcry.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he was deterred from flying to the UAE through Saudi Arabian airspace last week because of the threat of missile fire from Iranian proxies in Yemen. Netanyahu was scheduled to undertake his first official visit to the UAE on Thursday. The trip would have been the first by a leader of Israel. The UAE normalized ties with Israel last September, making it the first Arab country to sign on to the Abraham Accords, brokered by former US President Donald Trump. The deal made the UAE only the third majority Arab state to establish ties with Israel, following Egypt in 1979 and Jordan in 1994.
Another bloody day of protests in Myanmar. The Assistance Association for Political Prisoners said Sunday that at least 38 people were killed in the latest crackdown against anti-coup protesters. The advocacy group says 126 people have been killed since the military coup last month, adding that casualties are drastically increasing. The latest deaths were a result of security forces opening fire on protesters in Jong-un, with gunshots heard continuously throughout the day. At least 3 deaths were also reported in other parts of the country, including Mandalay and Bago. According to state television, a police officer also died of a chest wound after a confrontation with protesters. It's the second policeman death since the protests started.
A red Ferrari, 600 kilograms of cocaine, and an arsenal of weapons, including a Japanese sword, were seized from members of the largest drug gang in Madrid, police said on Sunday. 12 members of the gang were arrested, and Spain's national police called them very violent. Some $800,000 in cash was seized, along with 20 expensive cars, including the Ferrari. 3 daggers and several automatic weapons were also found during a series of raids. Police said in a statement that it was the largest cocaine distribution organization in the Spanish capital.
Iranian investigators now blaming Israel for an alleged attack on an Iranian vessel in the Mediterranean. And this after rejecting responsibility for an attack on an Israeli vessel in the Gulf of Oman last month. But in any case, the Ayatollahs are saying that an Iranian cargo ship suffered damages from an explosive object and that no one on board was hurt. But they add that, quote, considering the geographical location and the way the ship was targeted, one of the strong possibilities is that this operation was carried out by the Zionist regime, end quote. And indeed, Israel has reportedly targeted at least 12 ships bound for Syria, most of them transporting Iranian oil or mines and other weapons.
Joe Biden came to office promising a complete review of America's North Korea policy, but it seems he has already hit the first roadblock. According to a Reuters report, there is radio silence from North Korea. Pyongyang has so far ignored all advances made by the Biden administration. Since mid-February, Biden's team has been reaching out to Pyongyang, but with no success. Even its envoy to the United Nations gave Biden the cold shoulder. This is the first time We are hearing of US-North Korea engagement under Joe Biden.
Hundreds of demonstrators marched in Louisville, Kentucky on Saturday, 1 year after Breonna Taylor was shot and killed by the police. Her death, along with the killing of George Floyd in Minnesota last year, sparked global protests against police brutality and racism. Protesters marched through downtown holding signs of Taylor's face, chanting Black Lives Matter and No Justice, No Peace. Taylor, a black 26-year-old emergency medical technician and aspiring nurse, was shot 6 times during a botched police raid of her Louisville home.